Welcome to Pawnee, Indiana, the greatest town in America, the fourth obese city in America, and home to Sweetums and everybody's favorite mini horse, Little Sebastian. Today, we will be talking about one of the greatest television shows of all time, Parks and Recreation. Over the course of this podcast, we will be discussing iconic characters, memorable moments, and how a proposed spinoff of The Office turned into something greater. I am your host, William DeVere, and let's talk about Parks and Rec. Let's begin the episode by starting at the first thing we are going to talk about is the first thing we are going to talk about. Today, we are going to discuss about the MVP of Parks and Recreation, Ron Swanson. What can I say about Ron? Ron is amazing. Nick Offerman does a phenomenal job portraying Ron from everything from steak to woodworking to Little Sebastian, his ex-wives even. Ron is amazing. His sternness and seriousness is hilarious, and it really brings out the true person that Ron is. Ron is probably the equivalent of Dwight Schrute from The Office. I mean, probably out of everyone in The Office, Ron and Dwight are similar characters, but they have their differences. It'd be curious to see if they'd actually get along. It would be probably they'd get along first, but then it would be like Ron and Eagleton Ron, which we'll talk about later. But now back to Ron. Ron has some of the best relationships on Parks and Rec, so we're going to begin talking about Ron and Leslie. So if you can remember in season 1, Ron and Leslie, I believe they didn't have really that close a relationship, and that's one of the problems that season 1 had, was it didn't highlight the relationship between Leslie Knope and Ron Swanson. But as we get into season 2, we see Ron starting to respect Leslie. Ron probably thinks Leslie is over the top, cares too much about the government, which, as we know about Ron, does not give a you-know-what about government. But Ron thinks that Leslie will change the world and she'll do great things in Pawnee government to make it better, like how he supports supporting her for Leslie's election for city council, and even their strange falling out in season 7. I was like, no, you can't do this, Parks and Rec gods, but, you know, they got back together. We learned that it was a squabble over Ron's company building an apartment over Ann's complex. But their reconciliation, it's a really funny episode. Leslie or Ron is playing the sax. They're all drunk and hungover. It's just really funny to see. Once they were enemies, now they're best buddies. The next relationship we're going to be talking about is the next relationship we are going to talk about. So this is a relationship we don't really see that much, but when we do, it's really funny. It's Ron and Jerry, Terry, Larry, Gary, whatever you want to call him. Ron and Jerry are pretty much cool. Like, even when Ron has 94 meetings on March 31st, because April fought 30 days, half September, April, March, and November. And Ron says June, April, June, and he has everyone in the office, even Ann, who doesn't even work there at the time, help him do these 94 meetings, and instead he tells Jerry to take the day off. And it's probably because Ron's worried that Terry, Larry, Gary will probably mess something up, which he probably will, but it's very sweet that Jerry can go home to his lovely wife and his perfect world. And I love when Jerry retires and Ron congratulates him of all the years he has put into this. It's a really good thing. Ron is a great boss. I mean, like, even though he doesn't care at all, he cares about Jerry when all the officers, damn it, Jerry, constantly to him. I feel so bad for Jerry. But back on Ron. So next relationship is Ron and April. So Ron and April are perfect for each other. Like when April tried to become his assistant, like that seems really funny. And Ron asks, well, you hate your job. And April says, so do you. And when Tom comes in with a scarf, if you can recall, April shuts the door and Ron has a smile on his face. It's another moment where while Ron may not show his emotions, he is sure the greatest person you can rely on. So next is Ron and Andy. So Ron's the father that Andy never had, and Ron basically supports Andy when he goes to community college and takes all these weird classes. So it's really cool to see. You see Ron supporting him for at his spot at the shoe shine stand, and it's really funny to see. So the next relationship is Ron and Chris. So Ron and Chris are pretty much opposites. Like Chris is like, hi, Ann Perkins. This is literally the best podcast ever. No, so I really like that episode where Chris takes away the burgers and replaces them with turkey burgers, and they have a burger contest, and you think that Chris is going to win. He put all these spices into his burger, and everyone says, it's so good. And then they try Ron's burger. They say, no, this is better, way better. Andy tries it. Who is on Chris's side? He says, oh my gosh, this is so much better. And even Chris tries it kind of tensely and says, this is better. And he's like, unfortunately, we will be serving real meat hamburgers in the commons area. So it's pretty funny to see that. Next, we're going to be talking about Scandalous, the Tammys. So we are first introduced to Tammy 2, played by the great Megan Mullally. They are actually husband and wife in real life, and you can really see that on screen. I thought Tammy 2 was played by Tina Fey at first, but then I realized, nope, she's played by Megan Mullally. So that whole, when they get married a second time, they end up in jail, that is so funny. And their interaction at the diner, and then I can't go into it on this podcast, and it's just really funny how Tammy tries to seduce him, but the other Tammy won. She's a felon, okay? She'd be tried in like probably 36 out of 50 states for underage relationship, and she is cold, man. She is like the cold, distant mother I never had. I love her, says April. That episode, Tammy 1's played by Patricia Clarkson, and it's really funny. That's when you get to see no mustache Ron, and at that scene, Ron eats vegetables when he's out to lunch with Tammy 1, and Tammy 1 basically groomed him. He has to have permission to go to the bathroom, and I'm so happy that relationship ended, because seeing Ron without a mustache is one of the creepiest things I've seen in my life. So now it's time for top 5 favorite Ron moments. There are so many great Ron moments. There would need to be a whole nother podcast episode in order to talk about every single funny Ron moment, but we're only going to do the top 5 because that's only what we have time for. So coming in at number 5, it's Ron's tax lesson to the little girl in season 3, episode 14, titled Road Trip. So this little girl goes on field trip to City Hall, and she somehow gets to talk to Ron Swanson, and Ron talks to her about capitalism and how how government is bad, and she actually takes it all in, and he gives her a landmine that probably won't blow up, but you never know. Ron doesn't think that it's okay giving a landmine to a child, and so the girl's mom comes in, says she was supposed to do a government project, and said she handed a landmine, says government stupid. And it's really funny to see how the next generation is going to become Ron Swanson. So coming in number 4 is Ron's Pyramid, Season 3, Episode 1, Go Big or Go Home. I wish I had the full pyramid today. I would read all of it. And but it's really funny to see. He's even made a whole poster, like some of his you can only cry at funerals or at the Grand Canyon. And it's really funny because it's all about Ron. And I believe at the very top it says capitalism, like, cool. So number 3 is another one of my favorite all-time moments. It's You're On With Ron in Season 5, Episode 13, Emergency Response. So Ron has to go on Pawnee today to promote an event, and when he gets there, Joan, our crazy tabloid talk show host, has just come off a booze cruise, and she's very hungover, and she wants to do the show, and she ends up very hungover and can't do the show. So instead of taking her off stage because all the people that work for her will get fired, she stays on stage. And while Ron is asking questions about the banquet that night, he also turns into kind of a TV host and has people ask questions about woodworking and about the Grapes of Wrath and steak and all that cool stuff. And while Joan is laying in all these weird positions, and it's really good thing to see. Joan's portrayal, Mo Collins, does a great job with physical comedy. I believe she was on Mad TV, if I'm not mistaken. So coming in number 2 is Ron with the Flu, Season 5, Episode 18, Animal Control. So Ron is like dressed up really funny, and like he has the flu, and Anne says he needs to drink fluids. Another moment that I probably should have put in my top 5 was when Ron has his hernia, and when he can't move. It's really funny. And I believe that's the episode where Ron goes to the doctor, and the doctor likes Ron because he doesn't ask any questions like most people do. It's really funny, and I love what Ron wears when he's sick. So coming in number 1 is Ron and Eagleton Ron, Season 6, Episode 4, Doppelgangers. So like I said before, Ron and Dwight Schrute will probably be like Ron and Eagleton Ron. So they like each other at first. They're both silent man of few words, but as we learn that like Eagleton Ron wears sandals and eats salad and all that stuff, and Ron's like, no, and pretty much doesn't really care for Ron and Eagleton Ron. So that is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you for tuning in to listen. On next time's show, we will be discussing Aubrey Plaza's April Ludgate. I can't wait to talk about her. Thank you for tuning in to listen once again, and see you next time on Parks and Rec.